Bonjour, good day. Today we want to focus in on something that's really hurting Canadians, something Canadians are feeling the squeeze. It's the price of food that's going up. We know the cost of everything has gone up, and now slowly we're seeing some of that come down, but the price of food has not come down. In fact, it continues to rise. And we know that families are feeling it when they go to buy their groceries. They're feeling it because they're not able to afford what they could afford before. And what we're noticing, and the clear trend is, CEO profits are up in the corporate food market and the grocery stores, the corporate grocery stores. The corporate grocery store profits are up, but workers aren't getting paid more, producers aren't getting paid more, and families certainly are having a hard time affording it. So that's why we are pushing to investigate the cost of food rising. It's no surprise in Canada we've seen price fixing in the past. In 2018, we were pretty shocked to learn that there was price fixing going on with the cost of bread. So we're no stranger to the potential that there is something going on with the price of food. And we are deeply concerned because it's hurting Canadians. So we've pushed for an investigation, a probe into the cost of food, because we want to get to the bottom of this and stop this so that families aren't struggling to buy their groceries, to put food on the table. Donc, c'est clair que le coût de la vie augmente et c'est difficile pour les familles. C'est de plus en plus difficile pour les familles de rejoindre les deux bouts. En particulier, on a noté que les coûts des épiceries continuent d'augmenter. Même dans les autres catégories, on a vu une petite réduction. Donc, c'est clair que dans cet secteur en particulier, on a un problème. On a vu que les PDG dans ce secteur ont gagné des grands bonus. On a vu des grands profits, des profits massifs pour les entreprises des épiceries. Mais les producteurs ne gagnent pas plus d'argent. Les travailleurs ne gagnent pas plus un plus grand salaire. Donc, et c'est clair que ça frappe fort sur les familles. Donc, on a lancé une demande pour enquêter les prix des épiceries. Parce que malheureusement, c'est dommage, mais ce n'est pas quelque chose... c'est quelque chose qui s'est passé au Canada dans le passé. On avait un problème similaire avec le prix du pain. Et on a vu qu'il y avait un effort ensemble des entreprises pour augmenter les prix du pain. Donc, c'est quelque chose qui s'est passé. Et on veut enquêter, c'est quoi la situation maintenant, pourquoi le coût des épiceries continue d'augmenter, parce qu'on veut faire face à ce problème. Avec ça, je suis prêt pour vos questions. With that, I'm ready for your questions. We're going to continue to fight back to make sure families get the support they need. And we know with the cost of food, it's particularly hard on families. We're going to be there for you.
Première question, Hélène?
Oui. Bonjour, M. Singh, Hélène Buzetti, les coop d'information. J'aimerais vous ramener sur le programme de prestations dentaires annoncé par le gouvernement libéral. Il y en a quand même des gens qui critiquent que ce n'est pas un programme d'assurance dentaire, c'est juste un chèque, qu'il pourrait y avoir peut-être des abus. Que répondez-vous à ceux qui disent que c'est à cause de votre peut-être impatience à avoir un résultat d'ici la fin de l'année, qu'on est peut-être allé trop vite, qu'on a peut-être tourné les coins ronds?
C'est absolument à cause de notre impatience qu'on a forcé le gouvernement de commencer avec un premier pas. C'est le cas, c'est vrai. Et on est fiers de ça parce que le gouvernement a voulu ralentir le processus. Ils ont dit que ce n'est pas possible. Ils ont voulu pousser le deadline. Donc, on a dit non, on doit commencer tout de suite. Et on doit commencer avec les enfants de 12 ans et moins. Et on est fiers de ça. Mais c'est un premier pas. Parce qu'on a dit qu'on va accepter ce premier pas pour un programme fédéral où on paye les factures pour les gens qui n'ont pas de couverture jusqu'à fin de 2023. Donc, c'est toujours notre plan d'avoir un programme fédéral qui paye les factures pour les gens. Et on a forcé le gouvernement d'agir parce que oui, on est impatient parce que si le gouvernement a écouté nos demandes dans le passé, c'était quelque chose qu'on peut réaliser, on aurait pu réaliser, mais le gouvernement n'a pas décidé ils ont voté contre cette idée dans le passé. Donc, on est dans cette situation maintenant.
Et sur le fond, la forme que prend ce programme-là, ce programme intérimaire-là, vous en pensez quoi? Est-ce que ça vous satisfait de cette idée de donner un chèque qui n'a pas de corrélation avec les coûts véritablement engendrés pour les parents?
C'est vraiment une pas et c'est une pas intermédiaire parce que on a besoin d'un programme formel où les gens peuvent avoir accès à tous les services nécessaires. Donc c'est un fort premier pas parce que pour une famille, par exemple, qui va recevoir ce chèque, euh, si vous avez un enfant, vous allez recevoir $650 par année. Mais le deuxième chèque va arriver tellement vite, donc ça veut dire dans entre 12 mois, peut-être 18 mois, une famille va recevoir presque $1 300 pour chaque enfant dans un montant de temps de moins de 12 ans, moins de 2 ans. Donc, je pense que ça c'est une fort premier pas, mais oui, c'est pourquoi on demande d'avoir un programme formel parce que ça ne répond pas à tous les besoins et c'est pourquoi on continue de forcer ce gouvernement de mettre en œuvre le programme final où on va avoir un programme fédéral où on va payer les factures.
Next question.
Hi, Anya Kadadiglia, National Post. I'm wondering if you can tell me more about the investigation into food prices. Who do you want to look into this? What kind of questions do you want them to ask, and what do you hope to accomplish with it?
Well, I'll start with what we hope to accomplish. We want to make sure we get to the bottom of what's going on with the cost of food going up because we want to stop it. We know that this is an area where families are really feeling the squeeze, and it's the one area where the prices have not started to come down. While in the other areas of inflation, we're seeing some movement. Certainly not in food, though. That's where we're not seeing any movement at all, and that's deeply concerning because that's literally what people need to do: put food on the table. So that's our ultimate goal: is get to the bottom of this so that we can stop it. What we're inspired by, sadly, is that this has happened in the past, and we're no stranger to the fact that price fixing has occurred. And some of the major producers of bread and major grocery stores were involved in price fixing, which was uncovered after years in 2018. So we are worried that something similar might be happening because we see that the CEO bonuses are up, we see profits are up, but workers aren't getting paid more, producers aren't getting paid more. So it leads us to believe, as economists have pointed out, that it is not that prices have gone up in relation to the cost of production or the other costs that have increased, that grocery stores and CEOs have increased their profits beyond that or increased their prices beyond that to make record profits. And that's something that we're deeply concerned of. And we believe that's where government needs to step up and provide support and protection to Canadians. And that's what we're fighting for.
And you started off this parliamentary session already getting three big asks from the government in terms of the GST credit, interim dental care, housing benefit. Looking ahead at the next election, are you concerned that the government might end up getting the credit for this from voters, and the voters may not recognize that, the NDP's role in making that happen?
Well, we can show really clearly when it comes to the legislative agenda on day one of Parliament that these things would not have happened but for New Democrats. We've got some really clear examples. The dental care was something that the Liberals literally voted against. They voted against with the Liberals and the Conservatives coming together. They voted against this 2 times in the last parliamentary session. So we can show really clearly this wasn't something that they were hoping to do in the future, they were planning on doing, but just didn't get around to it. They voted against it. They literally said no. We forced them to say yes to families. But we also know that Canadians will have a choice with other parties, and the Conservatives do not believe that you deserve to get your teeth looked after. While the leader of the Conservative Party has had dental care for 18 years, nearly 2 decades, paid for by you, by the public, he believes that it's wrong for families to have that same coverage. That's something that he's going to have to answer at the polls. When it comes to the GST doubling of that, putting more that rebate, putting more of people's own money back in their pockets, again, this is something we've been demanding since the spring. And the government's response at the time, Justin Trudeau's response was, inflation is worse in other countries, and it's not our fault. We're not denying those facts, but that does not help a family that's trying to put food on the table. And we forced them to put this in place, and now it's happening. So we can show clearly that this would not have happened but for us. imagine if we were in government, the type of decisions we can make, how we can make people a priority. We wouldn't have to force someone else to do it. We would just get it done.
Bonjour, Christian Noël de Radio-Canada, ça va bien?
Mon ancien collègue.
Ah oui?
Je parle de Queen's Park.
Ah oui, ben voilà, on travaille ensemble à Queen's Park. Dans votre préambule, vous mentionnez l'histoire du prix du pain. De mémoire, c'était quelque chose qui avait été prouvé où il y avait une manipulation des prix. Êtes-vous en train de dire que les épiceries font de la manipulation des prix présentement?
On ne sait pas, mais les chiffres devant nous, les faits sont, les PDG ont reçu des bonus et en général, quand les PDG reçoivent des bonus, c'est à cause d'une performance, ça veut dire une augmentation des profits. Les entreprises ont gagné aussi des grands profits, des profits massifs. Mais on ne voit pas une même augmentation pour les travailleurs, augmentation de salaire, ce n'est pas là, ou pour les producteurs, il n'y a pas une augmentation de leur compensation. Donc, dans tous ces cas où on voit ces chiffres, ça soulève des grandes inquiétudes. Et en plus, dans les autres secteurs, on a vu une petite réduction, mais avec le coût des épiceries, ça continue d'augmenter. Donc, tout ça présente une image qui est vraiment inquiétante. Et c'est pourquoi on se bat pour les gens, toujours on priorise les gens, et c'est pourquoi on pousse pour une enquête pour savoir c'est quoi la situation, pourquoi. Et malheureusement, c'est quelque chose qui s'est passé dans le passé, qu'il y avait une manipulation des prix du pain. Donc, on ne sait pas c'est exactement quoi, mais on sait que la cupidité des grandes entreprises, des PDG dans ce secteur, définitivement contribue à l'inflation.
Si on regarde ce qui se passe présentement dans l'est du pays, la tempête Fiona, si on regarde les autres événements météorologiques qui ont eu lieu au Canada au cours des derniers mois, des dernières années, à quel point est-ce que vous croyez que le gouvernement est bien équipé dans son fonds d'adaptation climatique pour faire face aux changements et pour préparer le Canada à d'autres phénomènes du genre qui deviennent de plus en plus fréquents?
C'est vraiment une question primordiale. C'est pourquoi on a ciblé cette question dans notre équipe. On a une critique, une porte-parole qui cible cette question spécifiquement parce qu'avec la crise climatique et le changement de température, c'est clair que les situations extrêmes continuent et c'est plus en plus normal. Et c'est quelque chose qu'on doit prévenir ou on doit prendre des actions en avance pour préparer la communauté, pour préparer pour cette réalité, cette nouvelle réalité. Donc, c'est quelque chose de vraiment important. On doit investir dans la communauté pour préparer ces communautés dans le cas où il y a une tempête ou une inondation ou une canicule, parce que c'est plus en plus commun, ce n'est pas rare, c'est quelque chose qui se passe. Donc, c'est vraiment une question primordiale pour notre pays. Et jusqu'à ce moment, le gouvernement libéral n'a pas pris au sérieux cette question. Et c'est clair, parce qu'on n'a pas vu des actions suffisantes pour répondre à cette crise sérieuse.
Good morning, Rafi Bujikanian, CBC News. Say you do get the investigation you want into these grocery store prices, and it does conclude what you're saying appears to be happening, that CEOs are making record profits, and so are the grocery stores. What then would be the next step? Do you want the Canadian government to redistribute that extra money to Canadians, and how would you want to see them do that?
Ultimately, we want to make sure that Canadians are able to afford their groceries. That's our goal. And then the way we achieve that, there's a number of things that we can do. And we've called for a number of steps. If it becomes clear that this is strictly corporate greed and the greed of CEOs driving up the cost of food, then that merits a very firm action. We've called for things like a windfall tax, that oil and gas companies that have made record profits should have to contribute what they owe and redistribute that back to Canadians by making sure they pay what they owe, because they've enjoyed this massive windfall. Similarly, if there is clearly evidence that shows, well, if there's price fixing, then there's Competition Bureau steps that can be taken. And the same way we responded to the price fixing in 2018, we've got tools to respond to that. But at the end of the day, our goal is, we're seeing prices go up when it comes to food. We're seeing profits go up in this sector, and we're not seeing the prices come down. It is clear to us that there is corporate greed contributing to inflation, broadly speaking, and specifically when it comes to food. This is a problem. And it's something that New Democrats are saying, enough is enough. Let's get to the bottom of it and let's stop it.
Thanks. And just as a follow-up to Christian's question regarding climate action, the Liberals do actually have a climate adaptation strategy in the works that's due by the end of this year. What do you want to see in it?
First, an acknowledgement that extreme weather is becoming more and more common. And it has been so for a good period of time now. And we have seen some real serious devastation in our country, from extreme heat waves, flooding, extreme weather patterns in general, and now with the Hurricane Fiona. And I also want to just express how difficult that is for our friends, our family, our loved ones, anyone in the Atlantic region. It's hard hit, and it's left a really devastating impact. But it's clear that this is happening more and more common. And given that that's the reality, we haven't seen the response necessary from the federal government, from the Liberal government, to make sure that we're preparing communities for this now reality. That with extreme weather becoming more and more common, we need to be investing in preparedness for communities so that they're not responding after a crisis occurs or an extreme weather event occurs, but they're preparing in advance to make sure their communities are ready for it, are prepared for it. And there's steps that can be taken to prepare communities in the eventuality of a forest fire or a flood. There's infrastructure that can be put in place that will help these communities. And that's something that we've not seen this Liberal government respond to in an urgent way that the crisis demands. And that's something that we're going to continue to push for.
Reporters online, if you have a question, please use the raise hand function to notify us of your question. Si vous avez une question en ligne, utilisez la fonction lever la main pour nous avertir de votre question. Cormac, go ahead. I believe you're on mute, Cormac.
A classic line of the pandemic period. We all do it, though. We all do it.
Hold on, we can't hear you, Cormac. Well, I'll go check something.
Oh, elle va bien, oui. Elle, j'ai oublié le mot en français, quand les bébés rampent. Yeah. Ramper, oui, j'ai aimé le mot quand je l'ai pris, mais je l'ai oublié, oui. Elle rampe, et c'est complètement changé la vie un peu, parce que elle peut décider. Yeah, mais c'est
Hello,
cool
Cormac.
ça,
Now we can hear
j'adore
you.
ça.
Hold on.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can hear Cormac now.
Sorry, I was talking about
No,
my
that's
kid
fine.
calling in
Go ahead,
French.
Cormac.
The joys of life. Yes, please.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt that chat there.
I think it was appropriate to interrupt it. Thank you, sir.
Not a problem at all. So you're going to be introducing this motion, I believe, at the Agriculture Committee. Have there been discussions with the other parties? Do you know where they stand on whether they want to move forward with this investigation or not?
We don't know where the other parties stand. We've introduced this yesterday. Our critic did, Alistair McGregor, in the Agriculture Committee, and we think it's very important. So we'll be calling for all parties to support this. We need to investigate this. It is clear that, sadly, we're not strangers to this idea, as I mentioned before. Like, this has happened in Canada. We can't allow it to happen for years. In the case of bread prices, it took years to uncover that this was going on. We can't let that happen now. People are really feeling squeezed. So we want to act immediately and get to the bottom of this.
Okay, and just as a follow-up, aside from the bread price fixing scam that happened a while back, do you have any other clear evidence that there's anything shady going on? Because the industry says that this is due to a multitude of factors, especially around the effect on food prices from global issues such as the supply chain issues and the war in Ukraine. Transportation as well. So do you have any other harder evidence that there might be something else shady going on?
Absolutely. And it could just be as simple as corporate greed. It doesn't have to be any more nefarious, but that is deeply a problem. That is something, to me, that is a deep concern. The evidence we have is if it was simply an increase of price to match the increased costs, we wouldn't be seeing the bonuses and the record profits. So that is clear evidence that it's something beyond the understandable, perhaps, increased costs that flow from the war or gas prices that have gone up. If that was it, then we wouldn't be seeing huge bonuses that CEOs are getting. We wouldn't be seeing massive corporate profits going up. So that is the evidence that, and then in addition, we see other areas where inflation is starting to come down a little bit, but we don't see that when it comes to food. So all these things paint a picture that clearly there is something going on. And some economists have just said it based on the profits going up, based on the CEO bonuses, based on the cost not increasing. It's not like the producers are getting more. It's not like salaries for workers have gone up. Given all that evidence, economists have made the argument that it is clear that it is corporate greed and CEO greed that is driving up the cost of food, and in other sectors driving up the cost of living in general. So because of all that evidence that we've seen, we think that this probe is very important. It'll help us get to the bottom, and it will help ultimately us solve the problem, which is we don't want to see people struggling with the cost of food going up.
And this concludes the press conference. Ceci met fin la
Merci.
conférence de presse.
Have you discussed with other parties for your motion?
No discussions yet.
Okay.
Merci.